Hello! In this video, I'm going to give you an introduction to the book of Matthew. Matthew is the first book in what we call the New Testament, the second part of the Bible, and Matthew, along with the books of Mark, Luke, and John, is called a gospel. The word gospel means good news. So Matthew, as a gospel, tells the good news of Jesus Christ. Now, Matthew isn't really a story of Jesus' whole life. It's more of an account of Jesus' ministry, focusing on the things that Jesus said and did. When we look at the book of Matthew, we see that at the very center, the main focus of Matthew is showing that Jesus is the promised Messiah. Jesus, as the Messiah, fulfills and rightly interprets the scriptures, the Old Testament, the former books that God had given to his people. So when we read the book of Matthew, we find more quotes from the Old Testament than there are in Mark, Luke, and John combined. From what we can tell, Matthew is written with a focus on showing Jewish Christians that Jesus is the Messiah, that God has promised to them, that God predicted in the Old Testament. Now, that being said, the book of Matthew isn't only for Jewish Christians. Matthew also emphasizes that the good news of Jesus is for all people, not just Jews. We see this very clearly at the beginning of the book, where we have the visit of the Magi, who are non-Jewish people that come and worship Jesus as king. We also see this at the end of the book of Matthew, when we see Jesus commissioning his disciples to go forth and spread the good news to all nations. One of the things that we see that's unique about Matthew is very focused on Jesus' teaching, and he provides 5 large blocks of teaching, 5 sermons, that maybe in some ways are supposed to parallel the first 5 books of the Bible. So in chapters 5 through 7, we have what's called the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus talks about how to live as God's people. In chapter 10, we have this big speech that Jesus gives when he sends out the disciples as missionaries. In chapter 13, we have a large collection of parables, stories that Jesus tells about God's kingdom. In chapter 18, there's a large block of teaching about church life, especially about discipline and forgiveness. And finally, in chapters 23 through 25, we have another large block of text that focuses on judgment on the Jewish leaders in Jerusalem, and also looks ahead to Jesus' return at the end of time. Beyond these 5 blocks of teaching, really the big event that's dominating the book of Matthew is the death and resurrection of Jesus. This is what the story builds to. This is predicted earlier in the book, and this is the focus, because this is at the center of our beliefs about Jesus, is his death and resurrection. There are also a lot of famous stories in Matthew. Some of these are unique to Matthew. Some of these are also found in Mark or Luke or John. So we have the story of Jesus' birth. We have the story of the Magi, the wise men visiting Jesus. We have stories of Jesus' baptism and temptation, the miracle of Jesus feeding the 5,000, the miracle of Jesus walking on water, the story of the transfiguration where Jesus' glory is revealed, the story where Jesus enters Jerusalem on a donkey about just a few days before his death, and finally the book of Matthew ends with what's often called the Great Commission, where Jesus sends his disciples out. When we talk about books of the Bible, we often want to talk about the focus on Jesus, and that's very clear in the book of Matthew because it's an account of Jesus' ministry. We see that Jesus is our Savior, our teacher, he's the King, he is God the Son. And so what that means for us as readers of the book of Matthew is that we are called to believe in Jesus. We're called to live as his disciples, to listen to him and follow him. And finally, we're called to spread his good news to all. So there's some basic thoughts about the book of Matthew. Hopefully these thoughts will help you and guide you as you read along. Remember that central idea that Jesus is the Messiah, that he fulfills and he rightly interprets the scriptures. I hope that you enjoy reading the book of Matthew. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Thanks for watching.